One of the most challenging things about moving abroad with a spouse is being on the same page. Because the truth is that you will not always agree with your spouse. It happens with just everyday decisions like what you have for dinner or what kind of summer activities should you put your kids in. So when it comes to moving abroad, which is a big decision, a big undertaking, a big planning decision, of course, you're not going to agree on the same things. In a previous video, I talk about the best season for you to move abroad, or at least the easiest season to move abroad is when you are single, all by yourself, no kids, no spouse, you're on your own, you decide for yourself, and then you just go. If you want to watch that video, I'm going to link it up here. The next level is when it's you and your spouse, no kids, because yes, you're going to have some disagreements, but at the same time, it's less risky than bringing kids along because you have to decide for your kids and their safety and all of that. And then the level where I find myself in is the level where it's me, my spouse, and our 4 kids. So it's the most challenging level, but at the same time, I personally feel like it's the most rewarding level because this is where you get to experience something exciting, a new adventure, not just with your spouse, but also with your children. So in today's video, I wanted to share how to plan your move abroad with your spouse based on what we are doing and what we've done. So obviously the first thing that you have to do is figure out what is the goal. Why do you want to move abroad in the first place? Is it for a job? Is it for safety? Is it for to reunite with a family member? What is the goal of you guys moving abroad? Both of you have to have similar motivations. Some of your motivations might be different than your spouse's motivations. They might be at a different level, like ranked differently. Just like my motivation to have more support at home might be number 1, but for my spouse, that might be number 3 or number 4. And his motivation for business opportunities might be number 1. And for me, that could be number 2 or number 3. So make sure you know what their motivations are and what your motivations are as well, so that you can compare these motivations and make sure that they are not contradicting each other, even if they're not the same. So once you know the goal, you want to make sure that it's very clear. That way you know exactly how close you are to that goal. What is the purpose of that move abroad? To build something. How close are you to building that thing? If it's to expose your children to a new culture, okay, how close are you to that? Is it fluency in a new language, immersion in that culture, the fact that they feel comfortable in that culture? How will you know that you're getting close to that goal? So making sure that this is very clear for the 2 of you. Next important point that you have to take into consideration and clarify with your spouse is how long are you guys going to be abroad? This is something that was very different for my husband and I, because for me, I was in the mindset of let's just go and we're staying out of the US for at least 5 to 10 years. Okay, that was my process. But for him, it was a 1 year to 2 year process. And I was like, wait a minute, we're not on the same page here, because for me, I don't want to uproot our whole life just to be out for a year or 2. But for him, being more pragmatic, and because we have a lot of business to do here, then it's more practical to be out for not too long, but being able to come back. So we had to compromise and decide on, okay, what is the minimum that we want to be out for and the maximum that we want to be out for? And if something happens along the way, how do we evaluate if we want to stay longer or if we want to just come back home? So at least we have that flexibility where we're like, okay, we're going to evaluate at the end of each year and decide if we want to stay longer abroad or if we want to come back here. Now, in terms of destination, this is a debate that my husband and I had for many years, and I also brought him on the channel for that discussion on deciding where to go. He's Team Cameroon, I'm Team Côte d'Ivoire. We had to compromise, and we decided that, you know what, we're going to start with Côte d'Ivoire and Cameroon is going to come at some point after that. So good compromise. Côte d'Ivoire is not forever, Cameroon is not forever, but it's going to come into the picture. It's just that it depends on the order, and for us the order is Côte d'Ivoire first, and then we can evaluate how long we stay in Côte d'Ivoire for, and then when we are introducing Cameroon into the picture. So again, marriage is all about compromise. You have your own ideas, you have your own opinions, your spouse has their own opinion as well, and then you come together and you decide, okay, this is the third option. The third option is a little bit of each, a little less of mine, a little less of yours, and we combine things and to make a third option that works best for the both of us. So you have to compromise. That's something very important to know as you go into these discussions. It's not just going to be all about my way or the highway. As long as I'm happy, it's going to be great. No, because you don't want your spouse to become resentful because it was a one-sided decision and they were never into the whole move abroad process. And so you don't want that to be a problem along the way. You want both parties to be able to win through that process. At the end of the day, it has to be something that both of you are happy with, that will benefit both of you and the family as a whole. The next point is income. Obviously, talking about money sometimes creates some tensions in couples, but you have to be very clear on where is the money coming from. How are we going to fund this move? How are we going to fund the move to go there with all the paperwork, with all the admin stuff, with the moving cost, but then also the living cost. How are we going to sustain our lifestyle? Is it jobs at the location? Is it remote jobs? Is it savings, investments? What is the source of your income? You have to be very, very, very clear on that before you leave. Like, you need to have very serious conversations about how you're going to make that possible. It's not a we'll see. It has to be very clear. Same thing for your saving plan. If you are saving towards the move, you have to be on that same page and understanding, okay, how much are we saving each month? What are we sacrificing every single month, every single week, so that we can make that move possible? So both of you have to be in the same team and work at the process together, like one team, unified, making sure that you're both making the right decisions so that you can work together towards that unique goal. One thing that you also have to take into consideration when it comes to moving abroad, and mostly when it comes to living there once you're there, is something that we haven't decided on yet, and we haven't really had a lot of discussions about that yet, but it's in the back of my mind, is about safety. When your spouse gets sick or you get sick and you're abroad, and maybe you don't know how to communicate with the local hospital or the doctors, and what is the process like? What is going to happen when one of you or even both of you are not able to care for your children or care for each other? This is something that you need to be aware of, like here where you are, but even more so if you're in a new environment, if you don't even speak the local language. So making sure that you have those discussions before you leave, so that will alleviate a lot of the stress if or even when things happen abroad. The other logistical questions obviously involve, are you going to keep the house? Are you going to ship everything? Are you going to move to a big house, to a smaller house? Are you going to downsize? What kind of lifestyle are you going to have abroad? All of these logistical questions that can be easy to answer and solve in just one day, but that are very, very important because they can bring a lot of headaches if you're not on the same page. For example, I'm on the team of let's sell everything, let's just go with our suitcases and out. I don't need to ship anything, I don't need to bring anything. I am good. And my husband is more in the sense of, you know what? It's best to bring this, and this, because he has more experience living in sub-Saharan Africa. I don't. And so he's more pragmatic on the things that we will need once we're there and that we might not be able to find right away, or that we might not be able to find the things that we're comfortable with. So he's like, you know what? I think we need to bring this, or at least ship a car, because that will be more affordable than buying one over there. So these are some of the discussions that we're having when it comes to logistics. Less on the, okay, are we shipping the couch and the TV? Those things can stay, but more on the sense of, okay, what is something practical that we really, really need and it makes sense to bring from here, like a car. Does it make sense for Cote d'Ivoire? Does it make sense for Cameroon? It really depends, because the regulations for Cameroon are different from the regulations in Cote d'Ivoire. There are more restrictions on the age of the car in Cote d'Ivoire than in Cameroon. So that's something to take into consideration in our decision process. So same thing for you, deciding on healthcare, deciding on logistics, deciding on what school are you going to put the kids in. Sometimes for certain decisions, your spouse could be like, you know what, I trust you. All the little details, like in our case, I'm the one who's making a lot more research than my spouse, because that's also my personality. I'm very type A. I make the Excel sheets, I do the research on YouTube, I ask people, I ask his cousins about things in Cameroon and all of that. I ask my friends about things in Cote d'Ivoire. So all the details, I like to have those details. Even when we were just traveling on a regular trip, I like to have those details. So he trusts me with the decisions and the planning that I make, because I know that in the end, I know what he likes, what he doesn't like, and I make decisions accordingly. So he doesn't have to be involved in the beginning stages of the planning process. But as I make more progress in the planning, he can come in with the final decisions when we have to make like 2 choices or 3 choices, not when it's still at the beginning and deciding between 10 options. At that stage, he doesn't need to be involved. He is more involved in the, okay, tell me what are the 2 options or the 3 options. And that's where he feels like this is where he can bring in his input. So you definitely have to know your spouse and their style so that you can better communicate during this process and really help each other. Like my strengths are different from his strengths. He's the number guy. I'm more of the visionary and making things pretty and everything's gonna be great and we're gonna have fun. It's gonna be wonderful. And he's the one bringing me down to earth and be like, you know what, let's look at the numbers. As long as the numbers make sense, I can keep the vision alive and be positive about all the things, right? And we balance each other out. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to be flexible. Marriage is all about compromise and flexibility, like I said earlier. And so for this new adventure, this new undertaking, which is moving abroad with a family on top of that, well, you have to be very flexible. It's not about taking things personal because yes, you're gonna get your feelings hurt because there are things that you really, really want, but you might not get, because that's just how marriage is. You're going to have to make compromises. You might not agree on the timelines, you might not agree on the destinations, you might not agree on the budget, you might not agree on the neighborhoods and the schools for the kids, and you might argue and get into fights. And unfortunately, that's just part of it, because whether you move abroad or not, you'll have arguments with your spouse. That's just relationships, right? And so now about moving abroad, you will get your feelings hurt. Don't take it personal. Your spouse is not here to hurt your feelings on purpose. Hopefully, if you need to go through couples therapy to learn some communication techniques to better communicate with your spouse, then absolutely do that. 100% recommend, because it helps you to talk to your spouse from their perspective so that you take into consideration their feelings, their thoughts, their background, all of that, instead of just looking at your own gain and not looking at their own perspective. So definitely go through therapy if you can. At the end of the day, remember that this is a choice that you are making. Being able to move abroad, being able to leave the US voluntarily, it's such a joy and a privilege, and you don't want to turn the planning process into a nightmare. You want this to be enjoyable both for you and your spouse and your children. You want to be compassionate, you want to be caring, you want to listen to your spouse and understand their fears and their motivations, because your timeline might not be theirs, your choices might not be theirs. And so just like in marriage, you want to be able to bring the conversation with love and care and know that at the end of the day, it's all for the good of the relationship and the family overall. So if you have any questions about our own process, let me know below and I'll be more than happy to come back and answer your questions. But again, it's not perfect. No relationship is perfect. Whatever you see on Instagram, on YouTube about couples and families moving abroad and yeah, it's wonderful and we agree, it's not like that. It's not straightforward. There's a lot of work that happens beforehand, a lot of fights, a lot of feelings getting hurt. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, what is the goal? What are we doing this for? And the sacrifices and compromises will make this worth it, if that's really something that both of you want. Be flexible, because this is a major decision for you, your spouse, and your family. And again, if you have any questions, make sure you ask them in the comment section below. Until next time, bye.